Ever wonder what it really felt like to live centuries ago? Step into boring history for sleep, where we move slow, speak soft, and let the past whisper its secrets like candlelight on old parchment. Before you get comfy, go ahead and like the video and subscribe, only if you're actually enjoying it. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'm always curious to see the mix of places and time zones hanging out here together. Tonight, we are going to the time before the beginning of the history, a journey to the prehistoric times. Now, close your eyes and let your mind drift backward, past the cities, past the villages, past even the first stone tools. You find yourself in a world almost unrecognizable. The land stretches wide and open, a great expanse of sunlit grasslands that roll and ripple in the wind. There are no roads here, no fences, no signs. The air is alive with the distant rumble of hooves, the calls of birds, the rustle of leaves as unseen creatures move through the undergrowth. This is Africa more than 2 million years ago, and in this place the rules of survival are ancient and unbending. Somewhere among the grasses and scattered trees, a small group of beings moves together. They walk upright on 2 legs, but they are not quite like you or me. Their faces are flatter than those of chimpanzees, their brains slightly larger, their eyes alert and scanning. These are early hominins, perhaps Australopithecus, perhaps the first of the genus Homo, and though you might hesitate to call them fully human, they are already walking the long, slow road toward becoming us. Life for them is not about comfort, and it is not about planning far ahead. Life is about now. Now is the hunger that gnaws at the belly. Now is the shadow moving in the grass that could be a predator. Now is the need for shade when the midday sun presses down like a weight. They have no permanent homes, no fires to gather around, no clothing to shield them from the wind at night. They sleep in the open or in the low shelter of a tree's branches, perhaps on a bed of leaves if they are lucky. When darkness falls, they huddle together, not out of affection but because together there is a slightly better chance of hearing the approach of something dangerous. Their senses are sharp in ways ours have dulled. They can smell rain in the air before the clouds gather, hear the snap of a twig at a distance, taste whether water is fresh or tainted. They do not yet make sharp stone tools as their descendants will, but they are learning to use the world around them. A heavy stick becomes a lever to pry bark for insects. A rock becomes a weapon to throw or a crude hammer to crack nuts. These tools are not kept or improved upon. They are picked up and discarded as needed. Yet, even this small step marks a difference between them and other animals. They are experimenting with the idea that the environment can be shaped to their needs. Food is never guaranteed. Some days bring fruit from the trees, roots pulled from soft soil, eggs taken from nests before the angry parent bird can strike. Other days offer only the scavenged remains of a kill left behind by lions or hyenas, the bones still slick with meat. The hominins are not skilled hunters yet, but they are opportunists. They watch the vultures overhead, following their spiraling shapes to the promise of a carcass. The work of feeding themselves is constant, a rhythm as old as life itself. There is danger everywhere. Lions lie hidden in the tall grass, their golden coats almost invisible, until they are close enough to pounce. Leopards prowl the branches above, silent and patient. Snakes slip through the dust without a sound. Even other hominins from rival groups can be a threat. A fight over food or territory can turn violent, and without weapons more advanced than teeth and hands, injury can mean death. Yet these early humans are not helpless. They know the warning cries of birds that signal a predator's approach. They read the movement of the grass for signs of something stalking. They can run for long distances, outlasting many animals that rely on short bursts of speed. This endurance, strange and unmatched in the animal kingdom, will one day become one of the defining traits of our species. Nights are the hardest. The sun drops quickly in the tropics, and when darkness comes, it is complete. The stars spread wide overhead, but they offer no warmth, no protection from the cold or the creatures that own the night. Eyes shine from the shadows, some small and harmless, others wide and fixed on the group. They huddle closer, the youngest kept in the middle, and they listen. There is no firelight here, no circle of faces lit from below, no voices telling stories, only the slow breathing of those who have managed to fall asleep and the twitching muscles of those who remain awake, straining to hear the difference between the wind in the grass and the padded footfalls of something large. There are no spoken languages yet, Communication is a mix of gestures, facial expressions, and a small set of vocal sounds. A grunt might mean danger, a sharp call could summon others, a softer murmur might soothe an infant. Over time, these sounds will grow into more complex patterns, but for now, survival is a shared instinct rather than a shared plan. Still, cooperation is essential. Alone, a hominin would be vulnerable, but in a group there are more eyes to watch for predators, more hands to gather food, more bodies to protect the young. This cooperation is not yet culture, but it is the root of what will become culture. The land provides, but only to those who know how to take from it without wasting their energy. The group moves often, following the seasons, the fruiting trees, the migration of game. There is no map in their minds, but there is memory. They remember where the best waterholes are after the rains, where certain plants grow in abundance, where danger is most often found. These mental maps, passed on by watching and following the older members, are as vital as any physical tool. Birth is dangerous. There is no midwife here, no clean cloths, no shelter for privacy. A mother may give birth in the open, her pain hidden from predators by the careful watch of the others. If she survives, she carries the newborn close to her chest, feeding it with her own body. Infants are helpless for years, and their survival depends entirely on the constant care and protection of the group. Death, too, is part of life here. A fall from a tree, a wound from an animal, a sickness that drains strength until there is nothing left. These are common ends. The dead are not buried, not yet. They are left where they fall, or their bodies are carried off by scavengers. Mourning exists, perhaps in the form of lingering near the place where a companion died, but it is not ritual. That will come much later. The world itself is both beautiful and brutal. The sun is warm on the skin, the rains cool and life-giving, the trees heavy with fruit when the season is right. But there is no safety, no lasting comfort. Even in moments of rest, a shadow in the corner of the eye can bring the heart racing. These hominins live in a state of awareness that modern humans have almost forgotten. Their survival depends on being ready for anything, always. Yet, in this life of constant movement and constant vigilance, there are moments that might almost be called peace. A mother grooming her child's hair to pick out burrs, a group resting in the shade, the soft sound of chewing as they eat what they've gathered, the curious exploration of a new place, turning over stones to see what lives beneath. These small things are the seeds of something that will grow into what we think of as humanity. There is no art yet, no carving or painting, but the mind is beginning to turn inward as well as outward. The recognition of a familiar face after many days apart, the memory of a good water source from a previous season, the subtle awareness that the world changes and that they must change with it. These are the beginnings of thought that reaches beyond the present moment. And so, in this time, before we were fully us, survival is a dance between instinct and the first stirrings of reason. The tools are simple, the dangers many, but the will to live is strong. In the long nights under the stars, the ancestors of all humans endure, step by step, season by season, unknowingly shaping the path that will one day lead to us. After millions of years of walking the savannah, foraging, and avoiding predators, the early humans began to notice something that changed everything. Stones lay scattered across the ground, some jagged, some smooth, some with edges that caught the sunlight in a way that made them seem sharper than the rest. They picked them up, not for decoration, not for play, but because they could be useful. A sharp edge could split a tough root or scrape meat from a bone. A heavier rock could crack open nuts or drive off a curious predator. These first tools were simple, crude, but they were the beginnings of control over the environment. Picking up a stone and using it required observation, thought, and the recognition that an object could have a purpose beyond its natural existence. It was a mental leap that no other creature had made in quite the same way. Over time, they learned that striking one rock against another could create a sharper edge. This was a revelation. Suddenly, a flat rock could produce a flake with an edge fine enough to cut flesh, wood, or hide. With each successful strike, the hominins learned to anticipate the outcome, to hold the rocks just so, to hit with the right force and at the right angle. This was not yet an art, not yet a craft, but it was experimentation. Each generation observed the successes and failures of the previous one. They learned from watching, from trial and error, and from the instinct to survive. These tools allowed them to access food they could not have before. Bones that once were impossible to open could now yield marrow. rich in fat and nutrition. Tough hides could be scraped into strips for carrying, or perhaps, unknowingly, for warmth. They could hunt small animals more effectively, defend themselves, and mark their territory in subtle ways. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this simple recognition that a stone could be more than a stone became more sophisticated. Flakes were intentionally shaped. Tools were selected for purpose. The first-hand axes appeared, sharp on one edge and heavy on the other, perfectly balanced to cut, chop, and smash. They were symmetrical in a way that suggests the maker had some sense of aesthetics, even if the word did not yet exist. Using these tools required dexterity and patience. Fingers became more nimble over generations. The brain grew slightly larger, perhaps in response to the demands of manipulating objects with intention. The act of making a tool and then using it in the right way required planning, foresight, and cooperation. Sometimes groups would share a particularly effective tool or teach the younger members how to strike and flake correctly. This was one of the earliest forms of cultural transmission, a silent teaching that would eventually become spoken language. Alongside stone, other materials were explored. Sticks, branches, bones, and shells were used when available. A sharpened stick could dig roots from the earth, poke into termite mounds, or serve as a crude spear. Bones, stripped and polished, could be shaped into points, hooks, or handles. There was an emerging understanding that objects from the world could be modified to extend the human body's capabilities. These tools did not make life easy. They did not protect against every danger or provide a constant source of food. They were fragile, lost easily, or broken in the course of use. Yet each tool represented progress, the first glimmer of control over survival itself. The early humans also began to recognize patterns in their environment, partly in response to the needs their tools revealed. They noticed which rocks made better flakes, which trees bore the sweetest fruit at certain times of year, and which animals could be hunted with a stick versus which required coordination and patience. The landscape became a map, mentally charted, as their minds expanded to include memory, prediction, and planning. Cooperation became essential. A single person with a hand axe could do little against a large animal, but a group, using tools and strategy, could trap and kill prey. This coordination required subtle communication. Gestures, grunts, and calls conveyed information about danger, about opportunity, about success or failure. The first rudimentary forms of teaching emerged, with older, more experienced individuals demonstrating the strikes and angles necessary to produce a usable tool. Through these actions, knowledge became something shared, passed down across generations, slowly accumulating into a body of experience that no single hominin could carry alone. Over time, toolkits diversified. Some stones were shaped into scrapers for hides, others into points for hunting, others into simple cutting tools. There were distinctions in function, and with distinction came specialization. The first glimmers of labor division appeared, though primitive, as some individuals became more skilled at shaping tools, while others focused on gathering food or protecting the group. This period also saw the first evidence of foresight. Rocks were transported across distances, carried from one site to another because they were known to be useful. The act of carrying a heavy stone for miles implies planning beyond the immediate moment, an awareness that future needs might be met by actions in the present. The landscape itself began to bend to human purpose, subtle as it was. Trails were established, sites revisited, the remains of tools left behind, like markers of past activity. Each site told a story of survival, of ingenuity, of the slow and painstaking process of mastering the world one stone at a time. And yet, for all the cleverness, life remained perilous. A hand axe could not always save from a lion or a leopard. The world was full of hazards, and the hominins were still learning which threats could be met with tools and which demanded flight or avoidance. The constant balance between risk and reward shaped behavior. They learned patience, timing, and observation, skills as vital as any stoneflake. In the quiet moments, when the sun slanted low across the grass, the hominins might sit together, fingers tracing the sharp edges of their tools, feeling the weight and balance, testing the cuts and chips. Perhaps there was a sense of satisfaction, even wonder, in what they had created. These tools, crude and imperfect, represented a new kind of power. They were a bridge between instinct and intellect, between the raw impulses of survival and the first conscious manipulation of the world. It is impossible to know what they thought as they struck stones together. Perhaps there was curiosity, perhaps frustration, perhaps delight in discovery. What matters is that the act itself changed everything. In learning to shape objects, humans learned to shape themselves, their behavior, their strategies, and eventually their societies. This period of experimentation and slow mastery of materials would stretch for hundreds of thousands of years, each generation refining techniques, each individual learning through trial and observation. In this way, the seemingly simple act of picking up a stone and striking it against another is the seed from which the vast forest of human innovation would grow. One hand axe does not seem remarkable, yet in its creation lies the quiet triumph of understanding that the world can be molded, that survival can be improved, not just through brute strength, but through thought, patience, and the willingness to observe and act. The hominins of this age were still bound closely to the rhythms of the earth. They followed the rains, the migrations of animals, and the ripening of fruits. Their tools were extensions of themselves, ways to stretch their abilities beyond the limits of muscle and instinct. Life remained fragile, sometimes terrifying, but each flake of stone carried the promise of a future in which humans could endure, explore, and eventually transform the landscape itself. In the shadow of predators and the heat of the sun, the early humans walked, struck, cut, and scraped. They learned, slowly and painfully, that their minds, when combined with simple tools, could give them a foothold in a world that offered no guarantees. They were no longer entirely at the mercy of circumstance. The first tools were a kind of quiet defiance, a statement that survival could be negotiated, influenced, and in some small way, shaped by intention. And so, in the long, hot days and the dark, cold nights, the hominins persisted. They walked the savannah with rocks in hand, shaping not just the stones, but the future of their kind. With each strike, each successful cut, each sharpened edge, the ancestors of humanity inched forward, stepping from the raw immediacy of instinct toward the dawn of thought, the first glimmers of mastery over a world that was once wholly indifferent. Imagine a night on the African savannah long before the first villages, before houses, before anyone even thought of a home. The world is dark, vast, and dangerous. Stars shine above, but their light offers no warmth, no guidance, no protection. In this darkness, the earliest humans huddle together, alert, listening to the rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, the distant roar of a lion, or the slinking steps of a leopard. They have survived by sight, by smell, by hearing, by the keen attention to every small movement around them. Hunger gnaws at them, but fear is closer, immediate, and constant. And yet, somewhere in this darkness, change is about to occur. A spark, a chance, perhaps lightning strikes a tree, and the dry wood ignites, sending flames curling into the night. Perhaps a group notices the smoke and warmth of a small fire that had begun naturally. Whatever the cause, the effect is profound. The first encounter with fire is not merely warmth. It is illumination, protection, and revelation all at once. They gather around, eyes wide and cautious, bodies tense with a mixture of fear and fascination. The flames are alive in a way nothing else in the world is. They move unpredictably, reaching and twisting, crackling with sound, casting shadows that dance across the grass and trees. The humans are mesmerized. This fire is dangerous, yes, but it is also a tool of survival they have never possessed. Over time, they learn to nurture it, to keep it alive through nights and weeks, transporting it from one site to another, carrying embers carefully in the hollow of logs or in small pits dug into the ground. The fire becomes a central part of life. Nights that once demanded constant vigilance now allow a measure of rest. The glow reveals predators at a distance, deterring attacks. Smoke signals drive away insects and perhaps even snakes. The warmth allows them to sleep in places that were once too cold or exposed, extending their range across the landscape. Food itself is transformed by fire. The earliest humans discover that meat roasted over flames is easier to chew, more flavorful, more digestible. Roots and tubers that were once hard and bitter yield their nutrition after cooking. Fire softens, preserves, and enhances, allowing the body to extract more energy from the environment, sustaining life in ways previously impossible. Beyond warmth and food, fire shapes behavior. It draws the group together, creating a shared space where eyes meet, hands gesture, and sounds are exchanged. Around the fire, communication becomes more intentional. Early grunts and calls are used with purpose. Instructions are passed down, warnings issued, and eventually, stories begin, though in forms we can only imagine. There is a rhythm to nights with fire, a slow unfolding of routine. The group tends the flames, adding fuel as needed, watching for sparks that might escape. Children learn to respect it, to observe from a distance. Elders, or more experienced individuals, demonstrate how to manage the fire safely. Knowledge about fire becomes an unspoken currency, passed from one generation to the next. The control of fire also encourages migration and settlement in places previously uninhabitable. Cold nights in highlands, damp forests, or even near glacial regions are no longer insurmountable. Fire allows humans to push into territories that animals alone dominate, slowly mapping and inhabiting landscapes far from the safety of the familiar savanna. It changes social dynamics as well. Those who know how to maintain fire become valuable to the group. Skills in firemaking, fuel gathering, and cooking become intertwined with status and cooperation. Humans begin to understand that survival is not only about raw strength, but also about knowledge and foresight. The process of learning to make fire intentionally takes centuries. Friction, sparks from stones, striking certain rocks together, all of these methods are discovered over time. Each attempt carries risk. A failed spark could cost the group warmth or food, but persistence pays off. Once firemaking is mastered, humans gain something more than a tool. They gain control over the environment in a way no other creature can claim. Life changes, not in a single instant, but gradually. Nights become less threatening, social bonds strengthen, and the mind begins to wander in ways that were impossible when danger was immediate and constant. The firelight allows imagination, reflection, and perhaps even the first stirrings of abstract thought. In the warmth and glow, humans begin to experiment with cooking, noticing that flavors change, that certain foods are more satisfying, that the process itself is transformative. This experimentation is subtle, almost unconscious, but it represents a major step in human evolution. Energy from cooked food is easier to digest, which in turn supports larger brains and more complex cognition. Fire teaches patience and observation, rewarding those who respect its rhythms and punishing those who are careless. Sparks that escape can ignite dry grass and cause devastation, while well-tended fires can offer hours of safety and comfort. The night is no longer an enemy to be endured. It becomes a space for gathering, reflection, and learning. Beyond immediate survival, fire also extends the sense of possibility. Long after the sun has set, humans can see, move, and work. They can experiment with tools and shapes in the glow, perhaps striking rocks together more safely, testing the edge of a newly crafted hand axe, or preparing food for the coming day. There is a rhythm to this, a daily cycle now punctuated not only by the rising and setting sun, but also by the management of the fire. Seasons, migrations, and life cycles become intertwined with flame, smoke, and warmth. The fire itself is almost a companion, a living presence that must be fed, respected, and protected. And so, in the shadow of the night, humans begin to stretch the limits of their capabilities. They learn that the world is not only something to survive in, but something to influence, to shape, and to understand. Fire is not magic, though it may have seemed so at first. It is knowledge made manifest, a tangible reflection of the human mind's growing power. Around the flames, the earliest forms of culture take root. Knowledge about which plants are safe to cook, which meats yield the most sustenance, how to maintain the fire across nights and locations, and how to communicate about danger and opportunity, all spread from one individual to another. The fire becomes a center of learning and socialization. Survival becomes more than instinct, it becomes strategy. With fire, humans can store food longer, cook harder to digest plants and tubers, deter predators, and migrate into colder or more challenging environments. The world slowly bends to human skill and ingenuity, though always with the constant reminder of mortality and danger. The glow of the fire against faces in the darkness is the first true home humans have ever known. It is not walls or roofs, but it is warmth, light, and a shared sense of security. Around it, hands and eyes move, bodies stretch and relax. Minds begin to plan beyond the immediate, imagining possibilities that extend past today, past this night, past this hunt. And in these nights, long and still, under stars that have not changed for millions of years, the first humans begin to feel the extraordinary truth of what it means to survive. Survival is no longer merely reaction to immediate threats. It is preparation, observation, cooperation, and creativity. Fire teaches them that the world can be negotiated, that danger can be mitigated, that warmth and nourishment can be created rather than merely found. Each spark, each carefully fed flame, each meal cooked over the fire adds to the slow accumulation of knowledge and skill that defines our species. Generations later, this knowledge will be carried further, improved, and refined. The mastery of fire will become the foundation of new technologies, social structures, and the capacity for thought that stretches beyond the immediate. But in this early moment, in the dark savannah, fire is simply survival transformed. The night is no longer a blind threat. Hunger is eased by cooked food, and the body and mind gain new energy for the endless challenges ahead. These early humans, seated or crouched around the flickering flames, are the first to understand a quiet and revolutionary truth, that with knowledge, patience, and cooperation, they can shape their lives in ways that no other animal can. That small, glowing circle in the darkness is not merely light. It is the beginning of human control over the environment, the dawn of innovation, and the first truly social gathering around a source of shared sustenance and security. In time, fire will become a companion, a tool, a teacher, and a foundation of civilization. But in this moment, it is simply survival made possible, an intimate glow against the vast, indifferent night, offering warmth, safety, and hope to the earliest humans who are learning to be more than prey in a dangerous world. They sit close, they watch, they tend, and in the quiet rhythm of sparks and smoke, they endure. They endure as humans. The sun rises over the grasslands, soft gold spilling across the horizon, painting every blade of grass with light, and the world seems almost peaceful. Yet for early humans, peace is only a temporary state. Hunger stirs the mind before the body, and the first task of the day is to find food. The early humans are awake long before the sun warms the land. They listen to the soft sounds of birds, the distant calls of larger animals, the subtle shifts in the wind. Every noise, every scent carries meaning. Is that rustle a small animal moving through the underbrush, or the approach of a predator? Each decision is critical. The group moves together, eyes scanning, ears attuned, hands ready to grasp a branch or a stone. Their survival depends on both courage and caution. The first act of finding food is scavenging. It is not glamorous or easy. Meat is rare, and often the best meals have already been hunted by lions, hyenas, or other large predators. But early humans are patient and observant. They watch the circling vultures overhead, a sure sign that a fresh carcass waits somewhere nearby. They move carefully, following the birds, listening for subtle sounds of struggle. Once the carcass is found, the hominins approach with caution. Teeth and claws may still linger in the remains, waiting to defend what belongs to the predators. But the humans have learned to use tools, rocks, and sticks to ward off danger. They work together, some holding the attention of a predator, others stripping the meat, cracking open bones for marrow. Every movement is precise, calculated. It is a dance between opportunity and risk, a delicate balance where one wrong step could mean death. Scavenging teaches patience, observation, and coordination. It also teaches cooperation. Individuals who are careless or selfish do not survive as well as those who understand the value of working together. From scavenging comes insight into the habits of other animals, the timing of migrations, the signs of illness, the best places to find sustenance in each season. But scavenging alone cannot feed a growing group. Humans must hunt. Hunting is dangerous, exhausting, and often uncertain. The earliest hunts are simple, targeting smaller animals that can be cornered, trapped, or distracted. A sharpened stick can dig out a burrowing animal. A coordinated approach can herd birds into a pit. A net fashioned from vines can catch fish or small mammals. Every hunt is a lesson in observation and planning. Hunters must anticipate movement, read the terrain, and predict the behavior of their prey. They must know when to strike, when to wait, and when to retreat. The thrill of the hunt is tempered by the constant awareness of danger. Predators are not just competitors, they are threats. Lions, leopards, Janus, and even venomous snakes share the same landscape. Early humans must move carefully, watch constantly, and trust the group to communicate threats. As tools improve, hunting becomes more sophisticated. Stones are sharpened into points for throwing, sticks hardened over fire become spears, and coordination allows for drives where a small herd is funneled toward traps or ambush points. Success is never guaranteed, and failure is frequent, but every attempt builds knowledge and skill. The hunt is not merely for food. It teaches the first lessons of strategy, planning, and teamwork. It trains the body to run long distances, to endure hunger, fatigue, and stress. It trains the mind to think several steps ahead, to anticipate both the prey and the predator. Life is a constant test of skill and patience. When the sun rises high, humans forage for roots, tubers, fruits, and edible leaves. Every day brings a mix of hunting and gathering, a balance dictated by opportunity and the environment. Knowledge of seasons becomes critical. Certain fruits ripen only in specific months. Certain animals migrate along predictable routes, and the ability to remember these patterns separates survival from failure. Observation is sharpened by necessity. Humans note subtle signs in the environment, footprints in the mud, broken branches, the scent of a water source, the distant cry of a bird, signaling a predator. This intelligence is practical, honed by survival rather than curiosity. Yet even in this constant struggle, moments of quiet exist. Early humans may sit by a waterhole, watching fish dart below the surface, feeling the sun warm their backs, listening to the wind in the grass. These moments allow reflection, observation, and sometimes the simple enjoyment of the world's rhythms. Sharing is essential. Food is not hoarded because hoarding invites conflict or weakness. The group benefits when meat and gathered plants are distributed, when knowledge of where to find water or shelter is shared. These practices sow the seeds of social cohesion and culture. Every hunt, every scavenged meal, strengthens the bonds that make survival possible. Danger is never far away. Predators can strike unexpectedly, weather can change suddenly, and injuries can turn fatal without care. But humans learn to anticipate, to plan, to cooperate. Tools and observation improve the odds, and memory and experience become as vital as muscle or speed. Over time, hunting strategies become more sophisticated. Groups begin to work together to surround prey, to drive herds toward cliffs or pits, to anticipate seasonal They learn the behavior of each species, which animals are cautious, which are fast, which are strong, which can be trapped or driven. These lessons are passed from elder to young, creating the first structured knowledge about survival, even if unspoken. The hunt teaches more than skill. It teaches patience, observation, coordination, and sometimes even empathy. To survive in a harsh world, humans must care for the young, the old, and the injured. They must distribute food in ways that maximize the group's chances of enduring scarcity. The act of hunting is intertwined with these social dynamics, shaping the earliest communities. Scavenging and hunting together create a rhythm of life. Mornings are for observation and tracking. Midday may bring rest and gathering of plant foods. Afternoons and evenings may be spent preparing and sharing meat, mending tools, or tending to the fire. Each cycle teaches adaptation, the ability to read the environment, and the necessity of vigilance. Knowledge becomes cumulative. The discovery of a new technique, the identification of a new plant, the success of a hunting strategy, these are all lessons that endure beyond a single life. They are passed along, improved upon, and eventually codified into the traditions that define humanity. Hunting also fosters creativity. Early humans experiment with strategies, creating simple snares, traps, and methods of ambush. They learn to imitate the movements of prey, to mask their scent, and to move silently. Each success is small, but each contributes to the broader understanding that humans are not merely prey. They can shape outcomes through intelligence, planning, and collaboration. The challenges of the hunt instill resilience. Hunger, injury, failure, and loss are frequent companions, but they also teach endurance and innovation. Early humans learn to persist, to recover from setbacks, to observe mistakes, and to improve techniques. Even the act of carrying meat or roots back to the group teaches foresight and coordination, reinforcing the idea that survival is a shared endeavor. Over countless generations, hunting and scavenging shape not only the body but the mind. Muscles grow strong, reflexes sharpen, endurance extends. The brain grows larger, more capable of memory, planning, and abstract thought. Each success and failure in the hunt strengthens the neural pathways that will one day allow humans to speak, to reason, to imagine worlds beyond their immediate survival. By balancing hunting and scavenging, early humans maintain a fragile equilibrium. They do not always triumph over nature, but they persist. The land offers opportunities, but only to those who can read it, anticipate it, and respond with skill and cooperation. In the long sunlit days and the long dangerous nights, humans survive not by strength alone, but by intelligence, observation, and social cohesion. Hunting and scavenging are not merely tasks. They are the processes through which humans begin to define themselves as a species capable of shaping their destiny. Each spear thrown, each carcass approached cautiously, each root dug from the earth, is a step in the long journey from instinct-driven existence to the complex, thoughtful survival that will characterize humanity. The hunt teaches patience, the scavenge teaches observation, the cooperation teaches trust, and the cycles of success and failure teach endurance. In these simple, repetitive, and dangerous acts, the earliest humans learn what it truly means to survive. And in this slow, methodical learning, the ancestors of humanity continued to move through the world, always aware of danger, always seeking sustenance, always discovering the remarkable balance between themselves, the creatures around them, and the land that offers both life and threat in equal measure. Time moves forward, and the world itself begins to change. The grasslands that once stretched wide and sunlit are replaced by cold winds that cut across frozen plains, by glaciers that advance and retreat with the slow rhythm of the earth. The Ice Age arrives, not as a single event, but as a series of harsh, relentless seasons that stretch for thousands of years. Survival becomes more difficult. The world is harder to read, scarcer in resources, and more threatening in ways early humans have never experienced. The warmth of the sun is fleeting, often hidden behind thick clouds or snow-laden skies. Rivers and lakes freeze over, and familiar food sources vanish or migrate far away. Herds of animals move across the land in great migrations, seeking grasses and shelter, and the humans who depend on them must follow, sometimes traveling vast distances across icy plains. Hunger is constant, pressing on the body with unrelenting force. Roots and berries are buried under snow. Tubers are frozen solid, and water must be found by breaking ice or following rivers from distant sources. Every step carries risk. The cold numbs fingers and toes, makes movement slower and more dangerous, and can quickly drain the strength of those who are not prepared. Early humans must learn to adapt to this frozen world if they are to survive. Shelter becomes essential. They dig into the snow to create insulated pits, or they huddle in caves that offer protection from the wind. Rocks and earth are used to block drafts, and large branches are piled to create windbreaks. Fire, once a curiosity and a tool, becomes life itself. Maintaining warmth is no longer about comfort, it is about survival. Flames must be kept alive through the freezing nights, tended carefully, with fuel gathered from scarce trees and brush. The fire becomes a center of strategy, planning, and social cohesion, providing light, warmth, and a sense of safety. Clothing emerges from necessity. Animal hides are stretched, sewn, and layered to shield the body from frostbite. Early humans experiment with the way hides can be bound, wrapped, and secured, learning that multiple layers provide more warmth and that certain furs insulate better than others. Every stitch and binding represents ingenuity and adaptation, the human mind stretching to meet the demands of a harsher world. Food scarcity drives innovation. Hunting strategies change. Larger prey like mammoths, bison, and reindeer become primary targets because they provide both meat and hides sufficient for survival in extreme cold. Hunting these massive creatures is dangerous, requiring coordination, patience, and courage. Groups work together to drive herds toward cliffs or into traps, using fire, noise, and their numbers to gain an advantage. Each hunt is a test of endurance, skill, and understanding of animal behavior. Scavenging continues, now against both other predators and the freezing conditions. Humans learn to read signs in the snow, the tracks of wolves, the direction of migrating herds, the presence of shelter in rock formations or groves. Observation is life itself, and memory becomes essential. Those who remember the best hunting grounds, the safest shelters, and the timing of migrations are the ones who survive and pass on their knowledge. Ice and cold demand endurance. The human body is challenged to adapt, maintaining heat, energy, and strength in a landscape that offers little relief. Groups huddle together for warmth, sharing the limited calories they can gather or kill. The bonds of cooperation deepen because alone, no one can endure the frozen expanses for long. Social knowledge becomes critical. Communication, once simple grunts and gestures, grows more nuanced. Warnings about approaching predators, instructions for hunting, the sharing of techniques for making clothes, shelter, or fire, these become vital. Early humans must coordinate their activities precisely, or the consequences are immediate and severe. Nights are long, dark and bitterly cold. The wind howls across the frozen plains, carrying the scent of predators, the distant cries of animals, and the sting of frost. Sleep must be brief and careful. A misstep can result in frostbite, hypothermia, or death from predators drawn by scent or movement. Humans cling to each other, to the warmth of fire, and to the knowledge passed down through generations. Survival is both mental and physical. The mind must anticipate the scarcity of food, the approach of storms, and the shifting behavior of prey. Plans are made for days and weeks in advance, as the consequences of failure can be fatal. Early humans learned to store food, to preserve meat in snow or by drying, and to prepare for periods when hunting is impossible. Every decision, from where to sleep to which route to take in pursuit of prey, carries weight. Innovation becomes survival. Tools are refined for icy conditions. Spears and stone points are made more robust to penetrate thick hides. Scrapers and knives are adapted to processed furs for clothing and shelter. Knowledge of fire, carried carefully from place to place, becomes as critical as any weapon. Human skill is tested constantly by the environment. The Ice Age is unforgiving, revealing the limits of physical endurance and intelligence. Yet, through these challenges, humans persist. They learn not just to survive, but to thrive in conditions that would overwhelm almost any other species. Adaptation is not immediate. It is slow, cumulative, and relentless. Those who fail do not pass on their genes or knowledge. Those who succeed teach the next generation through observation, imitation, and subtle instruction. Over time, humans begin to manipulate the environment in small ways. Rocks are piled to block wind. Shelters are positioned to take advantage of sun and warmth. Fires are used to drive away predators and insects. The landscape is gradually understood, mapped in the human mind, and acted upon to improve survival. The harsh world shapes not just behavior, but cognition. Planning for the future, anticipating danger, and understanding cause and effect become essential mental tools. Memory is sharpened by necessity. Observation becomes precise. Early humans learn the patterns of the world in ways that are both practical and profound, laying the foundation for thought, strategy, and eventually culture. Ice and hunger teach lessons beyond the immediate. They instill endurance, patience, ingenuity, cooperation, and the ability to respond to circumstances that are unpredictable and often lethal. Humans learn to read subtle signs, the tracks of prey, the smell of approaching predators, the direction of wind and snow. Each piece of information is vital. The ability to act on it determines life or death. Yet even in this frozen world, there are moments of quiet wonder. The sun glints off icy surfaces, the aurora shimmers in the night sky, and the distant silhouettes of herds moving across snowfields create a rhythm to the harsh landscape. Humans observe, learn, and adapt, finding beauty and understanding in a world that is both lethal and breathtaking. Fire, tools, clothing, and cooperation come together to form a fragile but enduring network of survival strategies. No single element is enough. All must be combined, managed, and refined. Humans learn that the harshest environments demand the greatest skill, and in meeting these challenges, they grow stronger, smarter, and more capable. In this frozen expanse, life is a constant negotiation with nature. The cold, the wind, the scarcity, and the predators create relentless pressure. Every choice matters. Every misstep is a risk. Yet humans persist. They track herds, set traps, maintain fires, prepare hides, and share resources. Knowledge accumulates, passed from elder to child, often silently through observation, sometimes with gestures and sounds. Through the Ice Age, humans are tested in ways that no one in warmer climates could imagine. They endure cold that bites to the bone, hunger that gnaws endlessly, and dangers that appear without warning. And yet, in the process, they developed the resilience, intelligence, and social cohesion that will define the species for millennia to come. Survival in the Ice Age is not merely a matter of instinct. It is a matter of planning, cooperation, innovation, and understanding. Every tool sharpened, every fire maintained, every hunt or scavenged meal contributes to a growing body of knowledge that increases the chances of life for the group. Over thousands of years, humans learned to move with the seasons, to predict the behavior of animals, to create clothing and shelters suitable for the cold, and to manage food and fire with precision. They begin to understand the rhythms of the world and their place within it. Through these experiences, they not only endure, but lay the groundwork for the complex societies, technologies, and cultures that will come long after the ice has retreated. In the end, the Ice Age is both a crucible and a teacher. It forces humans to confront the limits of their bodies and minds, to innovate, to cooperate, and to endure. Those who do survive are stronger, wiser, and more adaptable. In the endless white expanses, under skies heavy with clouds, humans persevere, shaping their lives against the harshest forces nature can offer. Each meal obtained, each fire tended, each shelter constructed is a testament to the growing power of knowledge, cooperation, and skill. And through it all, humans continue, step by step, season by season, generation by generation, enduring hunger, cold, and danger in the unyielding pursuit of life. The cold is a quiet enemy, invisible but relentless, seeping into every crevice of the body, threatening life in ways that hunger and predators cannot. Early humans learn that survival in frozen landscapes depends on more than fire. It depends on protection, on insulation, on ingenuity. The first efforts to stay warm begin with observation. They notice the animals that endure the cold, mammoths with thick fur, wolves with layered coats, reindeer with soft underhair beneath coarse outer hairs. Early humans mimic what they see. Skins and furs become clothing, wrapped, bound, and layered to trap heat. A single hide draped over the shoulders offers some warmth, but multiple layers, bound carefully, can shield the body from wind and frostbite. Sewing emerges as a practical necessity. Bones are sharpened into needles, sinew or plant fibers are twisted into thread, and pieces of hide are joined with careful stitching. Each stitch is both a survival skill and a quiet triumph of human ingenuity. There is no pattern or decoration in the earliest garments. Functionality is the measure of success. Over time, styles improve. Hoods are fashioned to protect the head, leggings to insulate the legs, moccasins to keep the feet from freezing. Humans experiment, layering differently for various conditions, learning which furs are warmest, which stitches hold under stress, which materials resist wet or wind. The act of clothing oneself becomes a daily ritual, a preparation for the demands of the cold, a conscious adaptation to the harsh environment. Shelter is the other half of the battle. Caves are ideal when available, offering protection from wind, snow, and predators. Inside, fires are maintained. Rocks and earth used to block drafts, and spaces are organized for warmth and efficiency. But caves are limited, and humans must also improvise. Branches, snow, and ice are used to construct temporary shelters. They dig into snowbanks, creating insulated pits, cover them with hides, and position fires at the entrance to provide heat. The first knowledge of ventilation emerges instinctively. Too little airflow smothers the fire. Too much lets warmth escape. Shelters are chosen with attention to sun exposure, prevailing winds, and proximity to water and food. They are sites of survival and learning, as humans begin to understand the way the environment can be shaped to protect life. Migration becomes necessary as seasons change. Early humans observed the movement of animals, the freezing of rivers, and the growth of snow and ice. They follow the herds, moving to more hospitable areas when resources run low. These journeys are long and dangerous. The cold, hunger, and predators test every individual, yet migration is essential for survival. Humans develop strategies to carry supplies, to keep fires alive during travel, to protect the weak and young. Cooperation is no longer optional. It is essential. Social bonds are strengthened through shared hardship, and the knowledge of routes, water sources, and hunting grounds becomes the most valuable asset of all. The Ice Age teaches creativity. Humans experiment with different ways of combining clothing, fire, and shelter. They discover that layering hides with air pockets, traps, warmth, that fires inside shelters require careful management, that carrying embers allows them to maintain heat across distances. Every challenge sparks a new approach, a small innovation that increases the chances of survival. Even the collection and preparation of fuel becomes an art. Wood is scarce in many regions, and early humans learned to use what is available: dried branches, moss, and even dung. Each fuel type burns differently, requiring knowledge of how to start a fire, how to keep it going, and how to use it efficiently to heat shelters or cook food. Food itself becomes a tool for warmth. The consumption of high-energy meals, the preparation of cooked foods, and the timing of feeding are all adjusted to maximize the body's ability to endure cold. Hunters and gatherers eat strategically, conserving energy while ensuring sufficient heat and strength. The mind is as active as the body. Humans remember locations of edible plants beneath the snow, predict migration patterns of animals, and anticipate weather changes. Observation and memory become survival tools. Early humans must think ahead, plan for storms, and adapt to unexpected changes in the environment. The cold demands constant vigilance. Frostbite and hypothermia are immediate threats, and small mistakes can be fatal. Hands must be protected to manipulate tools, feet insulated to allow travel, bodies layered to retain heat while moving. Even sleep requires preparation, positioning near the fire, insulation under the body, layering of hydesol to maintain warmth through long dark nights. Cooperation remains central. Individuals share clothing, food, fire, and knowledge. Elders teach younger members how to dress, how to build shelters, how to manage fires and fuel. This transfer of knowledge is slow and deliberate, learned through imitation, demonstration, and practice. Over generations, the collective understanding of survival grows. Innovation emerges naturally. Humans learn that certain materials are more effective than others, that hides can be treated to repel moisture, that layering with gaps of air provides insulation, that sleeping in groups increases warmth, that shelters built partially underground resist wind. Every observation is a lesson, every trial a step forward. The Ice Age is not merely a physical challenge, it is a test of ingenuity, strategy, and social cohesion. Humans adapt not by strength alone, but by using intelligence to manipulate the environment, and by relying on each other. They create networks of knowledge about where to find shelter, how to construct clothing, how to maintain fire, and how to anticipate the movements of prey and predators alike. Even in the harshest conditions, humans find ways to make life possible. They discover the value of preparation, the power of cooperation, and the importance of cumulative knowledge. These lessons, learned in frost and snow, will echo across generations. Fire, clothing, and shelter together create a system of survival that transforms the Ice Age from a death sentence into a manageable, if relentless, environment. Humans learn to move carefully, plan methodically, and use every available resource wisely. The cold teaches patience, observation, creativity, and endurance. It forces humans to innovate in small, practical ways that gradually accumulate into significant advancements. Even leisure or moments of rest are shaped by the need for warmth. Humans gather near fires, observing, sharing information, and maintaining social bonds. The glow of the fire illuminates faces, fosters communication, and strengthens the sense of group identity. Each action contributes to survival, and the early humans begin to understand that their collective efforts determine the difference between life and death. Migration, clothing, and shelter are intertwined. The movement across icy landscapes requires adaptation of all three. Humans must carry or construct clothing suitable for long travel, maintain portable or temporary shelters, and manage fire in unfamiliar and challenging environments. These experiences reinforce observation, planning, and social cooperation. Over time, the cumulative knowledge of these strategies becomes encoded in culture. Traditions emerge, such as which materials to use for clothing, how to arrange shelters for maximum warmth, and how to travel with a group efficiently. Knowledge is passed down, refined, and improved across generations. Survival becomes not only a matter of immediate skill, but also of memory, planning, and teaching. The Ice Age is relentless, yet humans persist. They endure snow, wind, and hunger. They innovate with clothing, shelters, and fire. They learn to move across vast, frozen landscapes, to cooperate in small and large groups, and to pass down knowledge that ensures the survival of the next generation. In the process, they develop skills, intelligence, and social structures that will echo long after the glaciers retreat. And through all of this, humans discover a profound truth. Survival depends not only on strength or courage, but on observation, innovation, planning, and cooperation. Clothing, shelter, and fire are not merely tools. They are extensions of human ingenuity, reflections of a mind learning to shape the world to its needs. In the frozen expanse, every small adaptation matters. A stitched hide, a carefully built snow shelter, a fire carried across miles of icefall are triumphs of intelligence, creativity, and cooperation. The Ice Age tests humanity in ways no other environment could, yet it also teaches resilience, foresight, and social cohesion. Those who endure acquire knowledge that is cumulative, practical, and essential for the survival of the species. And so, in the long, bitter nights, huddled against the cold, warmed by fire, insulated by hides, and sheltered in caves or snow pits, the early humans survive. Each day is a careful negotiation with nature, a test of endurance, a lesson in observation, and an exercise in creativity. In these moments, humans are not just surviving, they are learning, adapting, and laying the foundations for all that is to come. The Ice Age, harsh and unyielding, becomes a teacher, shaping bodies, minds, and societies. It ensures that survival is not simply instinct, but intelligence applied, creativity employed, and cooperation mastered. In the endless white landscapes, humans persist, enduring the cold, seeking warmth, and discovering the remarkable art of staying alive. Water is life, and for prehistoric humans, it is both a blessing and a challenge. Rivers wind through the landscape, offering sustenance, transportation, and opportunity, but also danger, uncertainty, and the ever-present risk of drowning or predation. The earliest humans quickly learn that proximity to water is essential. It quenches thirst, nurtures plants and animals, and allows them to plan movements and settlements with the seasons. Observing animals provides the first lessons. Tracks along riverbanks, ripples on the water, and the behavior of fish and birds reveal the presence of fresh water, sometimes where none seemed obvious. Humans follow these clues, learning the patterns of streams, the depth of rivers, and the safest spots to drink or cross. The act of drinking water is simple, yet in a world of predators and shifting weather, it becomes a careful ritual. Eyes scan the banks, ears listen for the subtle warning calls of birds, and movements are slow and deliberate. Every sip is earned, every pause measured against potential threats. Water also offers food. Fish, shellfish, and amphibians become sources of sustenance that are abundant but require skill and ingenuity to exploit. Humans experiment with spears, hooks made from bone, and woven traps. The first fishing expeditions are tentative. A hand dipped into the water might snatch a small fish, while more sophisticated strategies involve coordinated drives or traps where currents are used to funnel prey into reachable areas. These experiences teach patience, observation, and subtle manipulation of the environment. The river itself becomes a teacher. Humans learn its moods, the speed of currents, the rising after rain, the quiet pools, and the dangerous rapids. Crossing water requires both courage and calculation. Stones and logs are used to bridge smaller streams. Deeper rivers demand wading or swimming, which is dangerous in cold or fast-moving waters. Over time, knowledge accumulates. Groups remember which rivers are shallow and safe, which are prone to flooding, and which contain abundant fish or edible plants. These observations are passed along from elder to child, from season to season, creating an early map of the landscape in the human mind. Rivers also shape movement. Early humans follow the courses of rivers for navigation, using the natural corridors to move across vast landscapes. The waterway dictates migration patterns, hunting routes, and locations for temporary camps. Knowledge of the river's rhythm, its flooding cycles, the migration of fish, and the patterns of surrounding animals is critical for survival. Fishing becomes a skill refined over generations. Humans learn to make spears that pierce underwater, hooks that hold, and nets that trap. Observation of fish behavior is meticulous. They note where fish congregate, how they react to currents, and when they are most vulnerable. Each successful catch is a triumph of understanding, patience, and skill. Beyond immediate food, rivers provide tools and resources. Stones for axes and scrapers are often found in riverbeds, smooth and sharp from the water's motion. Clay and mud offer materials for early constructions or insulation. Plants along riverbanks provide fibers for ropes, mats, and nets, as well as edible roots and herbs. Humans learn to read the landscape with an attentive eye, extracting sustenance and utility from the environment while respecting its dangers. Predators are a constant concern. Crocodiles, large cats, and other carnivores frequent rivers, drawn by prey. Early humans learned to approach water cautiously.